Coming up, we are revisiting the Tactile Reading Conference from last week, and I've got a cold.
You're listening to Double Tap, your daily accessible technology show. Now, here's your hosts, Stephen Scott and Shaun Priest.
Hey guys, welcome along to another episode of Double Tap. Oh, dear.
That made it into the coming up bit, did it?
Only because I do the coming up bit. I mean, if you did the coming up bit,
I don't mind doing the coming up bit.
Oh, you could do the coming up bit.
Right, I will.
Why have you never done the coming up bit?
I never get a chance. All right, I will do.
Right,
coming up.
Okay, now's your moment. On you go. Chance to shine.
I
Go.
was shining just then, and you just cut me off.
Yeah, but wipe your forehead. Right, go.
Coming up in today's Double Tap, we have...
And there we go. That's why you don't do the coming up.
No, the pressure was too much for me. I can't cope, Stephen Scott.
How about you?
Better than you. That's the main thing. You do sound a little bit under the weather.
I'll be honest. I didn't know if I was going to be able to crawl out of my bed today to do this, but I did. I am a hero.
Well
I am
done,
a hero.
you. Yeah,
Thank you.
you were, you had a bit of a sore throat, didn't you, a few days ago? And we were a little bit, oh dear. But you've soldiered through. Well done.
Yeah, although I think you were hoping you'd get less WhatsApp messages from me, and that didn't happen.
No, it never does it?
You just get deeper ones. Hey, how you doing, Shaun?
Barry White's on WhatsApp.
That's right. He's back. Oh, dear. Did you have a nice weekend? I didn't. Did you?
Yeah, I had a great weekend. Thank you very much. I didn't do anything.
I know you were recording with your friends. You didn't invite me along, but you invited
I invited you along. I said it was absolutely fine. Yes.
I think I had a cold, so I couldn't make it.
Yeah, you sounded rough. I told you to rest, I believe, because I'm always concerned, Stephen Scott. Yeah.
You just want rid of me. But no, here's the thing. We were supposed to be meeting up with good friends from that other Real Blind Tech show.
Yes.
Out there. We were supposed to be doing that on Saturday. Mm-hmm. And that was when I woke up feeling, I'll be honest, like death warmed up.
Yes.
And I said, I can't do it. I'm sorry. I'm being diva here. I cannot do it.
You didn't put yourself out for our good mate, the Fishter, did you?
No.
No, it's okay. It's fine. We'll do it again.
I never said I was a good friend.
No. Do you know what I did over the weekend, actually? And
Tell me.
We, Sarah and I, haven't done this in a long time, as I say it. I'm slightly worried.
Right.
We watched a movie together.
Oh, that's nice.
I know, it was, right? It was, how did it come up? Oh, Sarah was watching TV. I never watch TV. And there's a program over here in the UK called Gogglebox where celebrities watch TV shows and, Anyway, they were watching a film called Heretic with Hugh Grant. It's a horror film. And Nice. They just show you like the most suspenseful bit and then, here's the next thing they watch. So she really wanted to watch it. I found it on Amazon Prime, started it off, no AD.
Oh,
and you think,
come on.
no. Anyway, you know what? I'll just take a look. So I went to the audio settings, which is hard work to get to on the iPhone, by the way, in the Amazon Prime app, because it's full of stuff in there. X-ray telling you all about the characters and the actors. It's quite good, but it's a nightmare to navigate through.
Oh,
anyway,
I mean, you can't even see the film, and you certainly can't see through it.
No, well done. And audio description was in the list. I don't know why it wasn't already selected. I have no idea. But we watched the whole thing on my iPhone. Well, listen to it. As we were led on the set, it was lovely. And it was, the film wasn't lovely. But the AD was actually really good. So I recommend that one. Heretic on Amazon Prime with AD. If you like your horror films, it's cool.
Yeah, well, I went into Apple TV the other day because I was thinking, what's new, what's out? Because sometimes you get movies that will come out just before they leave the cinema or just as they're leaving the cinema, they'll appear and you can rent them. And with Apple TV, not everyone will be available with AD, but there's a good chance you might get it with AD on there. And there was one we were looking at. I've been wanting to watch this for a while. It's called Companion. And it's a horror as well, but it's all about AI. And it's about a couple of couples who go away for the weekend. Mm. And it turns out that one of them is a robot.
Who knew?
It all went from there.
Right.
I have to say, I've been on with some couples, and I've thought to myself, this guy feels like a robot to me. So I get it. I understand it.
You're suspicious of everyone.
Didn't quite end as horrifically, thank goodness. But
was it good?
Yeah. I haven't watched it because I've got to pay for it. And,
well, forget it.
Well, the problem is it was one of those, where we watch it tonight, and I was going to watch it, and then my wife said, no, I can't be bothered watching it tonight. I was just about to hit the rent button, and then I realised, well, if I buy it or rent it now,
You'll have to rent it later.
do I run out of rentage?
Is it 24 hours or 48 hours?
I don't know.
I'm sure it will tell you, by the way. What's with this? Talking of paying for your things, which I'm against.
I know you are, yes.
No, I was going through. I was saying...
And for legal reasons, we must say, you do pay for your movies.
Yes. Well, look, I was saying, does anyone watch Netflix anymore? I'm going through my monthly...
Oh, are you kidding me?
I'm going through my monthly subscriptions. I mean, in my house. I was asking, the kids and
I see.
Sarah. Because I was going through
the world.
No, I know it's
You seem to be doing okay.
It's one of those popular things, I know. But anyway, yeah, I can't get rid of it. Mainly for Star Trek, it seems. My youngest loves Star Trek. Original. It's got to be original, not the next generation or whatever it is. It's got to be the original with Kirk. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So I was watching this film on Amazon Prime, and you get adverts. But not only like at the start. I kind of understand that. Here's some other Amazon shows you might like. Okay, I can forgive that. Halfway through, this movie will resume after this short break. And then it played some more. I said, what? Am I not paying for this? What's that all about? And then when I was looking through Netflix, I think I've been grandfathered in. I've been in right from the start. But there's all these different tiers where, you pay, I don't know, $5 or whatever a month. But then you get adverts with it. Excuse me? That's the whole point of streaming, isn't it? Aren't we going backwards with all these ads?
Didn't I say this to you like 3-4 weeks ago, maybe even a month ago?
I wasn't.
And you poo-pooed me at this. I said this. I said it's like we're going backwards. I mean, we're trying to watch television now is almost impossible.
Yeah.
You go into a TV show, that sounds quite interesting. You go in. Of course, we have the challenge of trying to find the AD version. That adds a whole new layer of nightmare to it. And the amount of people that say to me, but it's on the app. And I'm like, yeah. My mother and father-in-law, they always recommend shows. And God love them, they're always saying to me, oh, you'll love this. And that way you're kind of going, will it have AD? And then you check and it doesn't. And hey, did you watch it? And I'm like, no, because it doesn't have AD. And they're like, And no one really knows what to say to that. Everyone's always like, oh, that's rather awkward. It's just like, falling in a shop.
You know what I say when someone says, does it have AD? I said, I hope so. I don't watch anything without AD, but there are some films you can still follow without AD.
Older films, maybe. Like if you've seen them before.
Not necessarily. No? It depends on how they're set up, really.
Any movie where someone in the film says, hey, sweet cheeks, you can watch that. That's fine, because you don't need AD for that.
Excuse me?
Those films from the 50s, the 1950s, all these kind of old black and white movies, and there's hey, sweet cheeks.
No, not at all, because a lot of them will have like orchestral strings going on while things are happening, but not...
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's just orchestral
that's the whole
nonsense.
Point. What am I saying? If it's dialogue light, a movie or a show, then we're out of luck. We got no chance. But there are some movies you can follow along. But as a general rule, if it doesn't start describing the logo when the film starts, I'm out.
Although in saying that, I have had a couple, you got to hang on. Because I've watched a few movies where you don't get the logos described.
That's a disgrace.
8,000 logos, by the way. I remember there was a Family Guy episode, and it was pretty much the whole film was just endless logos. And he was convinced that every single time it would, here we go, this is it, this is the film. No, it's another production company.
I remember that clip, yes.
That was a brilliant clip.
It's very good. You mentioned Companion there, and AI. I'm going to segue into some tech news, by the way.
How dare you?
AI. I see that CoPilot has released the screen sharing functionality on the Windows app. So if you well, it sounds really interesting. Sadly, US only. Now I don't know if that includes Canada as well, because it may do. But
if it says US only, that would suggest not.
I would suggest that, but I don't
think Canada's succeeded yet.
What do you mean? Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, let's leave that alone.
You get so worried there, didn't you?
Yes,
he's got politics.
Yes, I'm not touching
Turn left, no.
All right, we're in the middle.
Well, hang on. Yeah, keep careful.
What was I saying? Oh, yeah, so if you're in the US and you've got CoPilot, apparently now you have access to the CoPilot Vision screen share, at least. So what this can do is see your screen. But more than that, the interesting bit is it's got some agent support, and it can tell you where and what to click on in certain apps and software, and also take actions in the settings, in Windows settings. How far that goes, I have no idea because I can't test it and I haven't seen anything on that yet. But if you've got it, definitely check it out. It's well worth a look, I think.
Okay.
All right.
Well, move on to some other news. Goodness, I am having some kind of hot flush at the moment right now. I'm
you're
sweating like I've lost my wallet in a cake shop.
Well, you're that age.
I know. I am. Honestly, I am.
All right. Calm down.
It's the disease that is ripping through my body as we speak.
It's a slight cold. Come on, you'll be fine.
It's COVID-25.
Okay, all right. You've got to
There's
have
a
the
strain going
latest and
round.
greatest, haven't you?
Always got to have the best. None of that COVID-24 19 nonsense. No one wants that. You want the latest strain, and I can tell you, it's absolutely terrible. Right, look, coming up a bit later.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine, I think. A bit later today, you're going to hear me talk to Matthew Horspool. He's back with us, a good friend of the show. He's our, I'm going to call him our Braille correspondent because he's a fantastic guy. He knows all about Braille, and he's talked about it lots on the show. But he was at the Tactile Reading and Graphics Conference that took place in Amsterdam. Great place, by the way, although you will get killed by a cycle. Just saying. They are everywhere. Actually, there's a great movie. I don't know if you saw that. I Hostage. I think that was on Netflix. I Hostage. I think I told you about this. The one about it was like a hostage situation in an Apple store in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
I've been in that Apple store. I was in there.
You've been in every Apple store.
But, I mean, obviously it wasn't when that happened.
Yes.
But I'm assuming this is a true story. I mean, other than that, I'll just make it all up. But it was like the proper Apple store. And I thought, who let them away with this? I don't imagine Apple marketing saying okay to that.
That's how movies usually work. It's either true or they made it all up. There's no
Thank
other option.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that. No, but do you know what I mean? It's like the fact they use the actual Apple store makes me think, Craig Federighi won't talk about, Siri being terrible.
Yes.
But they'll allow an Apple store to be taken over by hostage. Well, they won't allow it. I mean, just be very clear. They didn't allow the store to be taken over by hostage. It wasn't like they were suggesting it was a good idea. It happened.
Could I
But
just
what I'm saying is
emphasise
the
anyone
movie,
listening? Stephen
the
is
movie,
very, very ill and possibly feverish at the minute.
No
if you're
idea
listening.
what I'm saying.
What were you saying?
That means
by
I
the
could
way?
get away with anything on today's show.
Please
I like
quickly move on.
Look, I do want to bring you some news, some breaking news.
Hang on.
Because
Coming up after is Matthew Horspool from.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about. I said it. We're going to talk about the Tactile Reading and Graphics Conference, or Tactile Graphics and Reading Conference, whatever way around it is.
Yes.
It was a brilliant event. We weren't there, but Matthew was.
Mm-hmm.
Now I didn't. I actually did speak to him prior to having the cold. So not today, in other words. So the interview is sensible. So don't worry, it's not all nonsense. But Matthew has a great story to tell about the event, and we get into talking about all kinds of stuff because it's not just. You might think, well, they're going to talk a lot about Braille. They actually didn't talk a lot about Braille. They talked about graphics and graphic production and how that can be made more accessible, more affordably to more people, and some really cool technologies that are being designed at the minute to make it more affordable for graphics to be created. It's a very expensive and time-consuming process. So, yeah.
I love listening to Matthew because not only does he really know his stuff inside out, he just really explains it really well as well.
He does.
I always go to Matthew if there's something, what does this mean? And he just...
I also may chuck him a listener question as well because I think he's the guy to answer.
Yes.
So let's see if he's up for that. We'll find out a bit later. But to some news and one story in particular which I want to mention, because a lot of you have been getting in touch over the past few months telling me, after my rant especially about accessible or inaccessible radios, a lot of you got in touch to tell me about an app called Speech Radio. Now this was a free app, or is a free app, that's available from the British Wireless for the Blind Fund. And it was made available for free. All you had to do was sign up. And I actually did reference it when I was talking about that in the rant. I was saying, you got to sign up. What's this all about? Like, sign up to everything these days. But okay, fine. You sign up to the app, you get the Speech Radio app. It's built for low vision and blind users. Bad news, unfortunately, for that app. The British Wireless for the Blind Fund is a charity, and they've decided they're no longer going to continue with that app, and it is going to be closed down. Now, if you are a subscriber to this, if you've signed up, you probably will have received an email about this, but if you've been thinking about it, or maybe you didn't notice it, because the email actually went to my junk folder. I caught it by chance.
Yes, mine too. Yeah.
So, if you haven't noticed this email yet, unfortunately, the news is that it is going away. Now, we actually do have some of that email going to be read to us now by Laura, because she read it for us. That's why we have it here with Laura reading it. Does that make sense?
No. Carry on.
Okay, here's Laura.
After careful consideration, we've made the difficult decision to decommission both our speech radio and speech talking newspaper apps. While we're proud of what we've created, the uptake of these services among our community has been much lower than we had hoped. As a small charity, we need to focus our resources on the services where we can make the biggest impact for the greatest number of people. This hasn't been an easy decision, and we know there is a small but loyal base of people who have found real joy, comfort, and connection from our apps. We really do appreciate the support and engagement of our users over the years. For those of you who use our apps regularly, we are committed to supporting you through this transition so you can continue accessing the audio content you enjoy. For those of you who also use the Alexa skill or access content via our web player, we're currently in the early stages of exploring whether there is another organisation that could manage this service. We will keep you up to date with developments. The apps will continue to be available for you to use until they are fully decommissioned later this summer. This gives us some time to work together on finding the best solutions for your ongoing needs. If you have any questions or concerns, or would like help and support finding alternative audio services or adjusting to using these changes, please email dave@blind.org.uk. He'll be happy to help and will work with you to explore your options. We will, of course, also keep you informed over the coming weeks about these changes and the date when they will come into effect, so that you know what to expect. Thank you for being part of our community. Your feedback and loyalty mean a great deal to us, and we look forward to continuing to engage with you as we develop new services to unlock a world of audio for people living with sight loss in the months and years ahead.
So that statement there from British Wireless for the Blind Fund, that came in on the email that was sent in. I have spoken to the team and Dave in particular at the British Wireless for the Blind Fund, and he was keen for people to know about this. He wanted people to be aware of what's going on. And the work that's being done to try and keep this skill alive, that is certainly something they're working on. They don't believe they'll be able to keep the speech radio app open. So sad news in a way, because it was very popular for a lot of people, but obviously it's a challenge. You know, we've talked about this so many times. We had an interview last week with Patrick Burton from Ben Vision talking about the challenges that developers face keeping apps open when you've got serious money behind you. You know, how do you do it for free? How do you continue these things for free? I mean, I suppose at the end of the day, if people want it, from a charity especially, they may just have to pay.
Listen to your tone, though. And I'm not pointing the finger at you, because I feel exactly the same way. Why do I feel different to this announcement than the RNIB saying, well, you know, the amount of people that use the Braille transcription service is tiny, so we're letting it go? And yet I was outraged.
I think it's the number of millions of pounds that RNIB has in its coffers, or say in its coffers at least, that it brings in every year.
Yes.
It's a much bigger organisation, and its focus is on blind and partially sighted people. This is a very small organisation trying to do some very big things, and you know they are trying to make radio as accessible as possible, and they do this through physical hardware that they either have made specifically for them that gets sent out to people for free. So they are doing what they can. But, when it's a small organisation, I do tend to have more sympathy. I'll be interested to see what people have got to say.
I agree with you. I think it all does come down to the resources at their fingertips, if you like.
Yeah.
But, it's a shame. I agree. It is a shame. More for the talking newspaper than the speech radio. I just think there are alternatives out there that are still accessible. So I can understand letting that go. But talking newspapers, I know a lot of people like.
I want to mention as well, Victoria Stream 1.5 update. Woo, woo! Yeah, a new update from Humanware. I would sound more excited normally, but it's because I have COVID-25.
Sorry.
That I can't get excited.
Woo! What's new in this update to get excited about?
Let me tell you. So starting with notes, which have come a long way. A simple, long-awaited feature has arrived. You can finally rename them. Sounds simple, but it's really important. Okay. Just a quick tip, though. Do it on the stream. Don't do it through the computer because it messes up the file structure. And once renamed on the computer, the notes aren't readable on older Victor products, so bear that in mind if you're going between different devices with your SD card. Notes are also better organized. Categories are sorted alphabetically, and if you're navigating through your notes and wondering where you are, just press the Where Am I button. It will now tell you which category you're in. Oh. And for those of you who love to record long-form content, the recording time limit has been extended. FLAC and MP3 notes, as well as internet radio recordings, can now go up to 24 hours. WAV files will stay capped to 8 hours, but still, that's probably plenty for most use cases. Moving on to books, it's a big one there. The Bookshare API has been updated to version 2, which means new and improved features, including access to reading lists and direct audiobook downloads. Bookmark alerts are also back. Yes, the same ones that you loved on the stream too, and they work just as you'd expect. Plus, for books that contain both audio and text, you can now switch between them with ease. There are also improvements to how NLS book descriptions appear in the US, including the DB number. And at the end of a book, there's now a helpful 1-second pause before the end of book message plays, just to polish things up a little bit. On podcasts, you can now move all episodes from a feed to your SD card in one go, much less faffing about. And if you were annoyed by HTML code being read aloud in podcast descriptions, that's been cleaned up as well. No more tag being shouted at you mid-show. Over in Internet Radio, you're no longer stuck browsing just the first 100 results. That's right, the iTunes bookshelf now lets you keep browsing beyond that limit. A couple of other things as well. If you're using wired headphones, the volume warning used to play after every restart or resume, which got old pretty fast, let me tell you. Now it only plays once every 20 hours of actual use, and that timer resets when you shut down or suspend. Also, Bluetooth volume controls now work properly, so if your Bluetooth headphones or speaker have volume buttons, they can now control the stream's volume as well. And there are a ton of other bug fixes as well. We'll put notes on our website, but that gives you an indication of what is new and what you can get by turning on your Victor Reader Stream 3rd Gen and getting the 1.5 update.
Very nice. Actually, lots of minor improvements, I would argue, but make a difference,
Good
right?
ones. Now, NVDA has a big update. It released today as well. Tell us a bit what you know about this, because you've been playing with the beta.
I have, yes. I've been running the beta for quite a while now. But today, as you said, we have the official release of NVDA 2025.1. Now, the big standout feature for this is the inclusion of NVDA Remote. It's built into NVDA now. Used to be an add-on, a great add-on. If you've used Tandem on Jules or even Remote Instant Manager, you'll be very aware of what this is. It's the ability to connect to another computer or allow someone else to connect to your computer and take control if they have any problems and show them how to do things. It's an accessible way to do that. It's very easy to use. You just type in a password, basically, that you both have, the same, and then you take control. It's very nice, and as I said, now built in to NVDA. So anyone running NVDA has this. So that's very nice.
Yes, that's good. So you can help someone out who's got NVDA, right? That's the whole point of this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't have to go and download anything else. You can do it all from within NVDA. I believe the keystroke is Alt modifier key and R. That will bring it up, and then you choose if you're the one that needs help or you're giving help, and it's as simple as that. Basically, pressing F11. Do check these keystrokes; it may have changed in the official. Pressing F11 will switch between taking control of the computer and switching back to your own computer. But it's very easy to use and totally accessible.
Brilliant. I mean, one thing I did hear though is in the installer now, when you upgrade to this new edition, we've lost the little sound effect you used to get, the little...
Oh, sorry, my NVDA seems to be installing Stephen Scott. I don't know what noise was that?
That's the noise it makes. It goes...
Does it? Okay.
Remember? That's what it does.
No, I don't.
That's exactly what it sounds like.
I've never heard that before in my life. Yes, now it's important to say...
I'm ill.
This... Yes, we know, love. It's only during the installation that you don't get that startup sound. When NVDA does start and exit, you still get those sounds. So only during the installation. Not sure why, but I'm not particularly going to miss that. The other thing it does mention in the release notes is that it has better speech support for SAPI 5, SAPI 4 and one-core voices when it comes to responsiveness. I haven't actually tested that out. I didn't notice much of a difference, but hey, maybe you will. Also, SAPI 4 gets the audio ducking, audio ducking, trim leading silences and rate boost, and also the ability to keep the audio stream awake so it won't go asleep if you're using Bluetooth in SAPI 4 voices if you're a SAPI 4 user.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder if that's why sometimes some voices, it feels like they're going to sleep and others they don't.
Yeah, like yours right now.
Yeah, that's just my actual voice. It's not my sappy voice. Well, it sounds sappy today. I think if anything's going to sound sappy, it's me. Okay, that's cool. That's really cool. I'm going to update mine today. I like having NVDA on my machine. I use JAWS mostly. Again, it's just habit more than anything else, but I use JAWS, but I do occasionally flip over. I just I know I keep saying it, I've said it a million times. I just love the boop, 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 in the progress bar.
I
just
know.
love
It's
that.
beautiful. Yeah, no, I know.
Okay, look, stick around, because up next we're going to hear the conversation I had last week with Matthew Horspool following his visit to the Tactile Reading and Graphics Conference in Amsterdam. We'll hear about that. And also I'm going to throw him a listener question about the best Braille display to buy.
This is Double Tap. We'll be right back.
Double Tap thanks Turtleback Cases for supporting the show and for creating gear with purpose, passion, and lived experience. It all started when founder Brian Eremita designed a case for the original Braille note, inspired by his son's vision loss. That personal connection turned into a mission. Today, Turtleback still crafts high-quality leather cases for note-takers and accessible tech, offering custom fits for the Mantis Q40, Focus 40, Victor Reader Stream 3, Braille eMotion, Blind Shell Classic 3, and many more. Everything is made in the USA, backed by a 90-day satisfaction guarantee and shipped worldwide via FedEx with tracking. Use promo code DT12 for 12% off your order at turtlebacklv.com.
This is Double Tap. Now, back to the show.
So let's talk about the Tactile Reading and Graphics Conference that wrapped up recently in Amsterdam. Matthew Horspool was there and he joins us here on Double Tap. Matthew, good to be back on the show.
Fantastic to be back on the show. Thanks for having me.
Now, look, I want to talk about the conference. I'm excited to talk about it. But before we do that, can I hit you with an audience question?
Always happens when you come on Double Tap. Yeah, sure, why not? I will do my best with an audience question.
You never know what you're going to get on Double Tap, do you? Honestly, you join for an interview, you think you know what we're going to talk about, and then I just blindside you with this.
Sorry, I'll send you the check afterwards, don't worry.
Yeah, okay. Well, here's the question from Karen, and I thought, who else would be better to answer this than you? Here's the question.
Hello, Double Tappers. Hello, Shaun and Stephen. I thoroughly enjoy your show. I'm looking to see if I can get through access to work a Braille note taker. I feel I would need one of these at work, and I was looking about note takers, and the two that have struck out is the one that you looked at on the show, which was BT Speak, I think it was, and the other one that I come across was, I think you pronounce it Brilliant 20 or Brilliant 40. I'm trying to search what both do to compare them, and I don't know what, I know what they do, but I don't know how I can compare them. I don't know if you could give me any advice, but I would be very grateful. And I just want to say, have a great rest of the week and keep up the good work, guys.
Thanks, Karen. Appreciate the question. And I thought, now we've got Matthew on, from your perspective at the Braillists Foundation, who else better to ask than you on this very question? So, you know, it's a very particular question in a way, because we're talking here about work and being in the workplace. What do you recommend for Karen?
Gosh, I mean, we could spend a whole show just talking about this, couldn't we? And indeed we have at the Braillists Foundation. We did a seminar about this a few years ago. Actually, we have a book on the Braillists website. If you go to braillists.org/Braille on display, that book actually might give you a really good sense of what products do what, and that might give you the comparison that you need. But just to address the products in particular that you talked about, I saw a BT Speak once. So just to talk about the BT Speak very briefly, it has a Braille input keyboard and it has speech output, but it does not have a Braille display. And the keyboard is quite a noisy keyboard. Now, to me, that's a feature. Like, I want a noisy keyboard. I like noisy keyboards. I feel like I can type faster with a noisy keyboard. I'm sure you can relate to this, Stephen.
I love a keyboard.
Yeah, it's great. But noisy keyboards are not great in recording studios, and they're also not great in the office. When you know, particularly if it's an open plan office and everybody's kind of doing their own thing, and there's clack with your noisy keyboard. Also, of course, I say no Braille display, so it's speech output only, so you'd be doing it with headphones. And the reason why I would steer away from the BT Speak in a workplace context is actually because it's not currently sold in the UK. So in order to get a BT Speak, you would have to import it from the US.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, the BT Speak, they don't, well, unless it's changed in the last month or so, and it could well have done, but I don't think there's a UK distributor for the BT Speak. There is for the Orbit Speak. The Orbit Speak you can get from Aspire Consultancy and Computer Room Services, but not the BT Speak. So you have to import it from the US. Workplaces might not be too happy about doing that. And also, if anything was to go wrong with it, the workplace would be responsible for repairing it, and they may not want to repair a product that they have to send it back to the US to get it repaired. So in a workplace context, more so than in a personal context, I would always recommend getting a product that has a distributor where the workplace can get some assurance that it's going to be repaired, which leads us on to the Brailliant displays that you talked about. They're sold by Humanware. Honestly, give Humanware a call. Get Humanware to come out to your house or come out to your workplace and do you a demo. They will do this. The Humanware sales team, absolutely fantastic. They will come out. They will bring all of their Braille products. They'll show them to you. They'll give you the opportunity to try them out. They also have a very generous returns policy if you do decide to go down that route and it doesn't work out for you. So get Humanware to do you a demo. If it's specifically a note taker that you're looking for, depends what you want to do on a note taker. The Brailliant does have some very basic note-taking functions built in. You can write documents and things like that. You can only write text files. You can't write Word documents. You can't check your emails. You can't go on the internet. For something like that, Humanware do have the Braille Note Touch Plus. Just at the moment, though, I would actually recommend the Braille Sense 6. And again, contact Sight and Sound Technology, who are the distributors of the Braille Sense 6. And see if they will also come out and do a demo. I mean, Humanware will, so hopefully Sight and Sound will too. But I mean, look, I could go on and on at length about that, but hopefully that's given you some food for thought. Of the two that you mentioned, probably the Brailliant, but there are other options on the market, and you might just want to consider them. And with Sight Village just around the corner, I don't know if you can get yourself up to Birmingham on the 7th and 8th of July. If you can do that, pop up to Sight Village. That's another opportunity to see them all and get some real-world comparisons.
Yeah, and of course there's the 40-cell version of the BI-20X as well. You can have the BI-40, the Mantis Q40, but it sounds like you're quite comfortable with Perkins Input, Karen. So if you're comfortable with that style of input, that's great. The alternative, of course, with the Mantis, and I guess with the Orbit Q40 as well, I think that's also available through Aspire in the UK. That has the QWERTY keyboard as well as the Braille display, and that's a 40-cell display. So again, for the workplace, that might be better. It's very much horses for courses, but it's good to know the options that are out there, and I'm so glad you were able to help us answer that question for Karen. Thanks for that, Matthew. Let's talk about the Tactile Reading and Graphics Conference then. Now, this is not one I'm that into, certainly not been as aware of on my radar, but that's primarily because, like a lot of people I hear from on the show, still quite new to Braille, still learning about this new world that's opening up in front of me. And this conference is a big part of that.
Yeah, and it's really interesting the name that it has, the Tactile Reading and Graphics Conference. Nowhere in that name does it talk about Braille. So I think that's a very deliberate choice. This was not a Braille conference. If we think about like the ICEB General Assembly, International Council on English Braille General Assembly that we had last year, that was first and foremost a Braille conference, and actually first and foremost a Braille standards conference. We did have some papers there, but it was really a standards conference and a business meeting. The Tactile Reading and Graphics Conference is much more liberal than that. So there were lots of presentations about Braille, of course. We talked about Braille music. We talked about the eBraille file standard, all sorts of things like that. But there was a lot more to it than that. There was a lot of talk about other forms of tactile reading. Is Braille still relevant? And of course we decided it was, but that theme was discussed. There was lots of tactile graphics stuff, lots of different innovative ways in which tactile graphics are being used. Things like signage, Braille, raised print, tactile graphics, maps. Lots of talk about 3D printing, and can you do 3D printing and indeed UV printing, which is the next big thing, to do tactile graphics. Blind people independently drawing their own tactile graphics and the tools that are available to help us do that. So really, really broad theme over these 3 days.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me, that subject brings around the thoughts of the Orbit graffiti, And then more recently, what APH was working on, I think they worked with Orbit as well on that project, but the Dot Pad as well from Dot Inc. And now, of course, the big player at the moment, the one that I hear most about, is the Monarch from Humanware. So these are the kind of the devices that are bringing tactile images to blind people. Now, of course, not en masse, because there's a huge cost associated with these devices. Was that the theme? Was that the theme that technology was kind of driving the innovation here, or is it much more beyond that?
I think there's lots of facets to it. So the graffiti, the APH product actually is the Monarch. So APH and Humanware are working together on the Monarch. They've got about a 50-50 split on that. So we hear more about it.
They worked with Orbit as well, though, didn't they?
They did originally. Originally they did, and then I think probably something went a bit wrong there, or the contract kind of came to an end or something. But yeah, they don't really work with Orbit quite so much anymore. They've put a lot of their effort into Humanware, first with the Mantis and the Chameleon,
okay.
and then with the Monarch. But yeah, I mean, they were all there. You know, the Monarch was there, the Dot Pad was there. Just kind of going back slightly further, I was at Site City a few weeks before that and saw the Monarch working with JAWS, which was really exciting. We saw an Excel spreadsheet. We saw 2 columns of an Excel spreadsheet shown on a Monarch display. And as you moved the spreadsheet to the right, the Monarch refreshed to show the next 2 columns. So, I mean, it was obviously, very early days. But yeah, this was all being talked about. We saw eBraille in the flesh, all of this. We saw the Dot Pad and what it was doing. If you connect a Dot Pad to an iPhone, you can view, when you're on the home screen, you can see all the home screen icons, actually a graphic, tactile graphic representation.
Not anymore, you can't, because they're all liquid glass, so that's all disappeared. You can't do that anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, let's see. But I think there's more to it than technology. Technology was definitely there. We talked a lot about technology, not just about the technology to view the tactile graphics, to feel them, but the technology to create them. Can you use artificial intelligence to create line drawings of things, which can then be passed through something like a Monarch? But I mean, so much more primitive than that, right? It's all well and good reading or looking at or feeling or whatever a tactile graphic, but does it really make sense without you first of all drawing those tactile graphics, or without first of all explaining the concepts behind those tactile graphics? So there was a lot of workshops about actually, here's how to do really basic stuff, like here's how to draw straight lines with a ruler, and here's how to, here are various different ways of showing blind people how to represent 3D images in 2D, how to show perspective, how to show the foreground, how to show the background. There was a lot of that sort of discussion going on, so that when a graphic does reach the Monarch, the blind people who are feeling them can actually understand and interpret them properly.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's fundamental, isn't it? There's a lot of assumed knowledge, which, of course, everybody may have in the mainstream sighted world. You understand what I think that the image that someone talked about once was a tree next to a skyscraper, and they couldn't understand what the difference meant in terms of height, because there's no way you can physically, reach the top of a skyscraper to measure it. And the same for a tree. So actually having those graphics side by side, like on that simple example, kind of showed perspective. It showed what the word skyscraper actually meant in relation to, everything else on the ground. So it's those fundamentals. It's a bit like color. I often think when we talk in terms of color with blind people, if you've never seen, how do you know what white and red and yellow and blue is? What do those colors mean? And I guess it's the same when it comes to images. Yes, an image is fine, but you need to understand the concept of what it is that's actually in front of you.
Yes, and ways in which we can show that. So if it's important to show that this is a red bit and this is a blue bit, okay, how? And different systems can do it in different ways. So if you talk about the Monarch and the Dot Pad, for example, their dots are all at the same height. Whereas with the graffiti, you can have dots at different heights. So you could use a slightly less pronounced dot to show the blue and a slightly more pronounced dot to show the red, whereas you can't do that on a Monarch or a Dot Pad at this point. And it's the same, with swell paper diagrams, what we would call Minolta or PIAF or Zychem or any of those sorts of technologies. You can shade it or you can not shade it. You can create graphics on braille embossers. There were a few workshops that used that sort of technology. But, View Plus Tiger embossers can do variable dot heights. Index enabling embossers can't do variable dot heights. So, various different strategies to have to get across a lot of different concepts.
And all of this costs a great deal of money, right? So I'm guessing we're talking primarily here for education and certain workplaces. We're not talking about for the average consumer yet, are we?
Well, that depends on what you're trying to do. Certainly the technology side of it, yeah, if we're talking about Monarchs and things like that, we're talking about education and to a certain extent the workplace, if you can get it justified. But like I say, there was so much stuff that actually wasn't terribly expensive because it was fairly basic. There's a company over in America, I forget what it's called now, but they make a product called the Sensational Blackboard. You should Google Sensational Blackboard and you'll come up with it. And we saw one of those. And if you remember drawing on German film, it's a very similar concept to that, but you can use regular paper. So you put regular paper on this board and you draw with a biro pen and you get a tactile raised line that comes through on the regular paper. Which, obviously there's a cost for the Sensational Blackboard, but it's a lot less than a Monarch. It's probably less than £100,
Yeah.
And then you can use regular printer paper and you can do fun, creative things with that. If you wanted to draw someone, make a custom drawn Christmas card or something like that. It's not what I want to do, but, you could do that. And there were people selling, there's a product called the Tactile pad, which is like a German film mat with studs around the outside, and you can attach rulers and graph grids and circle frames and angle measures into the studs, so you can draw very, very accurate tactile graphics that way. And again, it's expensive initially, but not expensive on an ongoing basis, and certainly a lot cheaper than a lot of the technology that's out there.
I use the word education. I throw it around a lot because it feels like in a way it just groups together everybody I'm thinking about. But of course, what I'm thinking about is children and children learning. But the children don't just learn in the classroom, they learn at home. And if parents want to take part, as many will do, in educating a blind child, then you're not going to be able to at this point, unless you're very rich. You're going to be able to go out and buy a Monarch or a dot pad or whatever else, right? You're going to be looking for those cheaper and in some ways more tactile solutions, because that can allow the child to engage and you engage at the same time.
Yeah, certainly probably at this stage more interactive solutions, I would say, if not necessarily more tactile. And also it's about using the technology that you've already got. We talked very briefly about embosser-produced graphics. Now, there might be funding available to get a Braille embosser because... that there might be a charity that will fund a Braille embosser. There might be a case for a child to have an embosser at home so that homework can be embossed, all sorts of things like that. So actually, if we can show people how to get tactile graphics out of their Braille embosser, then we're using technology that's already available. And there might be a cost of a product like Tactile View or something like that. But at least you're not having to buy lots of brand new equipment to do a job that can be done with the equipment you've already got.
So you've been at the conference for a couple of days. You were obviously listening into a lot of sessions, I imagine. What's your take on where we're at? We know where we're at with Braille to some degree. The adults in the room have been having the conversation for a long time that Braille is very much alive and well, and technology is a big part of that, right? Without a lot of the technology we have today from the HumanWares and the Orbits and the Selvas and whoever else, we wouldn't probably have access to Braille. Braille would have died. I think that's fair to say. Where are we though with tactile reading and these graphics? Where are we with all that? Because to me, that still feels, the stuff you're talking about feels very much the kind of things I experienced when I was at school, and that was in the 90s.
Yeah. So the question we've got to ask ourselves is that a bad thing? And I think what can sometimes happen is we can want technology to be the answer to everything. We don't need to do this with rulers and protractors and boards and pins anymore because technology can do it for us. And the reality is technology probably can do it for us. I could go to a Monarch now probably and say, give me a graph of, I don't know, y equals 5x plus 3, and it would give me that graph. But I didn't draw that graph. The technology drew that graph for me. So so I've got no concept of how to draw that graph myself. So that was kind of one of the questions that was really being bandied about at the conference was, okay, the technology is still bedding in. Actually, we don't really know what the technology can do and what it can't do at the moment, and we're still learning, and the technology people are still learning. But alongside that, we're having to learn what concepts do we need to teach people in order to make the most of this technology? What concepts do we need to teach people so that they can still draw independently in a technology-driven world? And just all of that, really. And I think, it kind of is like what you had at school. It's kind of like what I had at school, but, advancing on, really basic stuff. So instead of having a ruler that you have to put your pen against the ruler to draw, I saw a ruler that had a hole down the middle, a slit down the middle of the ruler. So you could draw your pen down the middle of the ruler, and therefore it wouldn't slip left and it wouldn't slip right. And so even really basic innovations like that are making things easier for people.
And there's going to be lots of children that would benefit from that, not just blind children.
Yeah,
right?
And let's talk about 3D printing, right? We're talking about, can blind people do 3D printing? Can we 3D print tactile graphics? But actually now, increasingly, can we 3D print the tools to create tactile graphics? Could you 3D print a tactile ruler? Could you 3D print a tactile protractor? What if we can, and I think probably we're deciding that we probably can, where do we share those 3D printed resources so that everybody can print the same tactile ruler and the same tactile protractor without having to duplicate that effort? So I think that at the moment, aside from technology, I think that's really where the conversations are concentrating, is that initial concept development phase.
And of course, the potential there for blind entrepreneurs to jump on that and make some money out of it and actually turn it into a business. There's
indeed
all kinds of potential there, right? That benefits everybody. Talk to me a little bit about the UV. What was it?
UV printing.
UV printing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That.
To be honest, I don't know a great deal about it. We saw examples of UV printing at the conference. I think it's still in the very early stages of people experimenting with it, so we didn't really see much presented about UV printing. But my understanding is that it prints onto, like, you'd have a flat surface, like a flat piece of paper or a flat piece of plastic or cardboard or whatever it is, and why it's called UV print, I guess ultraviolet, there's some ultraviolet involved in it somewhere, but it prints filament, I guess, onto that surface. So what you end up with, I've seen examples of it, what you end up with is something that feels a little bit like a swell paper diagram, a Minolta diagram, a Piaf diagram. Yeah, something like that. Sighted people like it because it's very colourful. It will swell up even if it's not black. So you can make really colourful diagrams with it. The examples that I've got, because you can print it onto stronger surfaces, like you can print it onto cardboard, they've survived better than some of the Minolta diagrams that I've had over the years.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more durable. It's also a lot more expensive. And so I don't think we've got any UV printing at all in the UK at the moment. I think Vision Australia have got a UV printer. Dutch Visio, I think, have got a UV printer. We're sort of starting to see it in big organisations with lots of money and lots of expertise. It's certainly not a mainstream technology at the moment.
And is there any of this technology that could print Braille itself?
Yeah, we're starting to see that as well. Because sure, it's just printing filament, right? So you can 3D print Braille. There was actually a workshop about how to 3D print Braille. I didn't go to it because I think the outcome of that workshop was you can do it if you can see, but if you can't see, the technology isn't quite accessible enough to be able to do it. So, but yeah, we're starting to see 3D printed signs, UV printed signs. On the conference badge that we had, it was UV printed, and it had really nice, proud UV printed Braille dots. Is it DBSV or DVSB? I forget which way around it goes. In Germany, they've actually made a UV printed Braille slate, like a Braille frame, slate and stylus. So you have to have a stylus. They can't UV print or 3D print the stylus yet, but they have managed to UV print the slate, and it's got an alphabet card on the same thing. So the top half of it is a slate, and the bottom half of it is an alphabet card. And it costs about 90 cents to produce it. So
Wow.
Yeah, there's work going on in that space for sure.
It does feel like a lot of the technology that's coming out is actually enabling us to get to the same place we've been in for many, many years. It's just via a different method of delivery, which is kind of interesting to learn about. I want to ask you one more question about the Monarch and the dot pad and the graffiti, if that's even still a thing. I don't know where we're at with that now, but I'm intrigued to know your take on this, because my feeling, and this is purely from the outsider looking in, because I'm not a customer for a product like the Monarch or the dot pad or any of these at the moment, I don't think. But I am intrigued because the price is obviously the challenge. I see the price and I think there's no way. Just can't afford that. That is going to be a huge barrier going forward. But we're kind of at that niche within a niche within a niche space when it comes to these devices. Do you imagine these devices can come down in price? Do you think we'll get to a stage where, the price of per dot or per cell on a braille display can actually be reduced enough to make this viable?
It's a really interesting question. I don't think we're going to see in anytime soon. I don't think we're going to see the headline numbers come down by any significant extent. I don't think we're yet at a point where we're going to see a multi-line braille display of the same caliber as the Monarch or the dot pad. I don't think we're going to see one for under £8,000 or £9,000 at this point. It's always going to be prohibitively expensive. I mean, at the moment it's like, where are we now? I mean, the dot pad's about 12,000, the Monarch's about 15,000. I mean, it might come down by 2,000 or 3,000, but it's still going to be pretty high in price. But the thing that's really interesting to me is that when I was 12, a braille note cost £4,100. I'm now 30. I'm over 30. I'm 33, and a braille note costs £4,300. So if we talk about real terms prices, the price just hasn't changed. I mean, it's gone up by £200. But if we thought about inflation, by now, if the price hadn't come down, a braille note would be costing like 7,000, 8,000, something like that. So I think probably even if the headline price doesn't come down very much, I don't think we'll see it go up very much either. And so I think we will reach a point where it feels more affordable because the price is not going up at the rate of inflation. And I think that's probably where we'll see it become more affordable. I also think different markets see affordability in very different ways. Without wanting to dwell too much on it, I saw the Activator Pro at Site City.
Yes, yeah.
Lovely device, right? The Activator Pro costs, I don't even want to say, about probably £9,000 or £10,000 or something like that.
Yeah, it was 12,000 US, something like that. I remember, yeah.
And that really brought it home to me because I thought, well, hang on, I can get an 80-cell braille display for 10 grand, or I can get a dot pad for 12 grand. I mean, I'm sort of making up the numbers a little bit, but that really brought it home to me that actually in the UK, we wouldn't be able to afford Activator Pros. But in Europe, clearly they are able to afford Activator Pros, otherwise they wouldn't be making them. And we don't know actually what the market's doing really outside our own countries. So are the dot pads going to sell really well in Europe, for example, where the funding allows for this slightly higher priced technology? With the Monarch, with HumanWare and APH, does that allow it to be sold not necessarily cheaper, but with more federal funding because it's being backed by APH in the US? So I think we probably will see some economies of scale, and that probably will also bring the price down a little bit. We just may not see it in all countries, and we may not see it all at the same time.
Yeah, the success of those devices, I think, is definitely driven by government funding. I look at the European Accessibility Act, and it, of course, is on the way. And I kind of think to myself, I wish they'd put a provision in there saying, and by the way, if blind people need these kind of devices, they should get access to them. But that wasn't adopted in there, and I don't imagine it would be. But you never know. I mean, maybe Europe is the first to come round to this. I think it's probably more likely that it would take a block like that, a block of those countries to actually do that, and possibly Australia, because they have some good funding models. The US, of course, have done some work on this with the Monarch, and they have put a huge amount of money in to buy these devices. Not sure about Canada, certainly not sure about what's going on in the UK on that front. Not much, other than, of course, as Karen referred to earlier, the access to work funding, which, of course, is also under threat. So,
And it's all about justifying it,
concerned.
right? I mean, actually, what do I want a multi-line Braille display
What do you
for?
need for exactly?
If I just want it to read Braille, then it's very hard to justify a multi-line Braille display over a single-line Brailliant, which is a fifth of the price, right? If I need to read a lot of charts and graphs, if I'm a sales manager and I need to read statistics that my people have given me, well, maybe there's more of a case for saying, actually, if I had a Monarch, I could view this pie chart without having to print it off and swell it up, and it might go a bit wrong, So I think, there's going to be a lot of justification in trying to work out actually who needs it and what do we need it for, and making sure the technology fulfills the purpose that we need it to fulfill before it really gets into the hands of the masses.
Yeah, sounds like a very interesting conference. I'm glad you were there. Thanks for coming on and telling us all about it. Also, thanks for answering, I should say, Karen's question as well. I appreciate that. I'm sure she will too. Matthew Horspool, always good to have you on the show.
Good to be here. Cheers, Stephen.
Matthew's great, isn't he?
Yeah, so good. Like I said at the beginning, he just explains everything so well, and he knows it inside out. Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, we're back tomorrow. I'll still be complaining, probably, so expect more of that. And lots more besides. Remember the newsletter? Subscribe on our website right now and get an extra dollop of dub-dub. If you want to hear more about WWDC, go check it out. Thank you, Shaun.
Thank you. Bye-bye.